next news. Breaking news from the White House.
James Comey's legal nightmare just got a whole lot worse. What started as an indictment over that infamous 8647 post is now expanding into something far bigger. And the people who targeted President Trump for years may finally be the ones answering questions under oath. A key witness is stepping forward. The Trump Justice Department is drawing a hard line, and new reporting says prosecutors are now looking at a second front tied to alleged classified leaks. This is not media theater. This is the kind of accountability that millions of Americans were promised. And if this keeps moving, Comey may be staring at a full legal siege. Now, why does this matter to you? Because James Comey was never just another bureaucrat. He sat at the center of one of the most damaging periods in modern American political history, when powerful figures inside government helped fuel attacks on a duly elected president and poison public trust in the institutions that were supposed to serve the country, not rule it. If there are finally consequences for conduct tied to threats against President Trump, and even more importantly for alleged leaks of sensitive information, that sends a message far beyond just Jim Comey. It tells every unelected operator in Washington that the era of immunity is over under President Trump's second term. It tells every family that watched the Russia hoax, the leaks, and the lawfare circus unfold that the people who abuse power do not get to hide behind titles forever. Now, politically, it means the Trump administration is not playing defense anymore. It's taken the fight directly to the old guard that tried to break the presidency and overrule the voters. And while we're talking about turning the page and rebuilding strength, let me tell you about something that got my attention for a very personal reason. You've probably seen the clip, Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they impact the body at the cellular level, and Gibson just says it straight. This stuff works. You see, that got my attention because in my own life I watched something very similar unfold. For a long time, my wife was dealing with constant discomfort and anxiety. It was one of those battles that wears you down day after day. Then we discovered red light therapy. Jonathan Otto has put together powerful options at myredlight.com. If you want to check it out, use NNN25 for 25% off individual items or NNN30 for 30% off bundles. Now back to the story, because the pressure on Comey didn't stop with that first indictment. See, this is the twist that the media really don't want to spotlight. See, it's no longer just about social media and a debate over what 8647 meant. According to new reporting, DOJ prosecutors in Virginia are pursuing a separate track involving alleged classified leaks. That changes the entire picture. One legal headache is survivable, multiple active fronts, possible witnesses, and a Justice Department that sounds fully committed. That is a different level of exposure entirely. And Comey's old media shield may not be enough this time. Jack Posobiec is ready to testify against James Comey. I did not see this coming today.
Steve, I saw the Attorney General's comments and I saw the CBS report. I do remember the tweet from 2022, and I've discussed this with my family and I've discussed this with my legal team. And as of this time, I am now fully prepared to turn myself in state's evidence to cooperate with the Department of Justice and testify against James Comey. So I will cooperate in any way possible in the prosecution of James Comey, and I await my opportunity to testify and be called in court.
But isn't it some radical attorney general, state attorney general, going to come after you and try to charge you with the exact same thing that they charged? Now, it was a year investigation, so there's a lot more there than you see the eye. But aren't these state AGs? I can tell you from personal experience, they don't care about the law. What they care about is taking out some of Trump's best people, sir.
Steve, the context here is very clear. The context of 2022 was the 25th Amendment. Like I said, here on War Room every single day for 4 years straight. The context of James Comey was he was putting out a book as part of a marketing strategy about political assassinations. That's what that post was about. His book was about political assassinations, and his post was meant to gin up interest for his book about political assassinations. That's why AG Blanche said this is a year-long investigation. We do look into all of this. We look into intent. We look into context. We look into every piece of it. And this is an investigation, by the way, that was going on before Blanche became the acting AG. So it's up to James Comey to have to now go in and explain how this was part of a marketing strategy for his book, again, about political assassinations after we had already faced 2 high-profile political assassinations. Look, it's very clear at the time, everyone understood the context of the 25th Amendment. Nobody's had a problem with that at the time because they knew the context was different.
So Posobiec says he's ready to cooperate and put Comey under oath. Now listen to the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche making the DOJ's position very plain.
You know, there should be no doubt you cannot threaten the life of the President of the United States. Can't do it, okay? And so beyond that, I'm not going to comment. We've had an indictment returned by a grand jury in North Carolina. I think my understanding is Mr. Comey appeared in court in Virginia today. I'm not sure the schedule beyond that. I haven't caught up to folks about that. But he will be given every single right, every single opportunity to defend his case in court. And the U.S. Attorney's Office should be given every single right to do exactly what they have a right to do as well.
So Blanche is drawing a hard line, saying Comey will answer in court, but the corporate press is already running cover, with Reuters pushing legal experts who claim the indictment just won't hold up. Listen to this guy.
Justice Department has indicted the former FBI director, James Comey, who goes by Jim Comey. The core accusation is that Instagram post with some seashells saying 8647 conveyed a serious threat of injury or death against Trump. Legal experts say this is a really weak case because while true threats can, of course, be criminalized and prosecuted, it's a really high bar to meet that under our First Amendment jurisprudence, which gives really broad free speech protections to Americans. 86, well, linguists say that this is a term in the restaurant industry. It can mean to be out of an item or to eject someone. As I understand it, it is a term that in certain contexts can mean eliminate or kill. Like in the military context, it has been used that way. Trump has said that it's a mob term.
You ever see the movies? 86 him. The mobster says to one of his wonderful associates, 86 him. That means kill him.
I've seen linguists talk about this term, and that has not come up. To sustain a criminal conviction, you can't have any reasonable doubt. There have not been that many prosecutions under this statute about threatening the president. There's been cases involving much stronger language, much more menacing language that have been found to be political speech that cannot be grounds for a conviction. There was a case from 1969 that's really on point involving a military protester who, speaking about the draft conscription, said, if they give me a gun, the first person I'm going to point to that is LBJ, the former president. And the Supreme Court said that is political hyperbole. They said, as part of a free society with a robust exchange of ideas, you're going to have some ugly speech. And that simply was not menacing and threatening enough and direct enough to sustain a conviction. You actually have a social media post that Trump wrote where it was addressed to Pam Bondi, the former DOJ, saying it's time to speed up these investigations, and he mentioned Comey by name. Trump has not done himself any favors by speaking so much about Comey and about urging his Justice Department to bring cases against his perceived political enemies.
Yeah, nice try, Reuters. Nice try, carrying water for Comey. Reuters wants viewers focused on free speech defenses and legal technicalities. Now here's Mollie Hemingway with the bigger point that Comey's record isn't one bad post, it's leaks, abuse of power, and the anti-Trump coup machine.
We see the president here really taking a new tack, I think, going directly after James Comey.
Well, there is this issue where people elected Donald Trump in part because they were horrified at what people like James Comey had done to our institutions. James Comey, yes, he leaked again to hurt Donald Trump, but he also leaked to hurt Hillary Clinton, according to what we know. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there were additional leaks that he had done for political gain. When you have people like that in positions of incredible power and trust, and they abuse those positions, it is important that they be held accountable. And we have not seen that thus far. You don't really have a republic if people are allowed to run an absolute coup attempt against a duly elected president by falsely accusing him of being a traitor who colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 election. And I think we all know that James Comey knew that wasn't true. And yet he perpetuated that. And I've reported on how he demanded that the obviously joke of a dossier be included in that the intelligence community assessment that was then distributed to members of Congress, all to make them believe this absolutely delusional conspiracy theory.
So Hemingway lays out the pattern: leaks, politics, and a weaponized insider class protecting its own. And now comes the next hit. A report that DOJ prosecutors are also pursuing separate charges tied to alleged classified leaks. The scoop: DOJ prosecutors in Virginia are pursuing separate charges against James Comey for allegedly leaking classified info. Blanche's DOJ, not satisfied with just 8647, in recent weeks revived a national security probe that stalled out last year. So James Comey is not going to get away that easy as much as Reuters wants to tell you. See, this is the aha moment. The Comey story is now a test of whether the permanent Washington machine can still protect its own when the target is one of its former stars. Blanche said it plainly: you cannot threaten the life of the President of the United States, full stop. Add Posobiec publicly offering to cooperate in testimony, now entering the picture. Then add the revived leak probe. Suddenly, what the media wants dismissed as a weak case looks more like an opening move in a broader accountability push. And that is what terrifies the establishment. Because if James Comey can be forced into court, then the myth that anti-Trump operators are untouchable starts to collapse in front of the entire country. See, of course, Reuters is already pushing the familiar script, quoting legal experts who say the case is flawed and could be tossed. So maybe the argument gets tested in court. Fine, that's where it belongs. But here is what matters tonight. The Trump administration is acting, not posturing. Yesterday was an indictment. Today is witnesses and a reported expanded probe. That's what promises kept looks like when accountability finally starts coming for the people who spent years targeting President Trump and, by extension, the American voters sent him back to the White House. So I want to hear from you. Do you believe James Comey should face every legal consequence if prosecutors can prove these allegations? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Share this report, subscribe, check out the Next News merch shelf below this video, but most importantly, text raw feed to that number on the screen, 844-840-4963, to bypass the algorithm and get direct messages from me straight to your phone when it matters the most. Stay loud, stay fearless, and keep standing for America first.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this. Share this now.